Hey everyone, Brian Von VA representing Mr. Ripper. How y'all doing? I hope everybody's doing okay. Today, we're going to be talking about something that, well, honestly, in real life and in game, you should always be aware of. Red flags. Those little things at the back of your brain that tell you this situation is bonkers. Yeah, we don't like those situations, but today we're going to be talking about them in Players. What are your red flags for DMs? And if you have a red flag that you'd like to share, you can do so in the comments below. Everyone knows such notorious red flags as extreme railroading, toxic behavior, and various creepy tendencies, so I'll mention some less obvious ones. Inconsistency. Usually it's about homebrew and stuff, but even in pure vanilla campaigns, there were such moments with my DMs when the same situations are treated differently for seemingly no reason. I still remember some episodes when one session a player asks if their bard can try to cook something delicious for an important guest, and the DM answered, "Yeah, no problem." But then, literally the same campaign just one session later, the same player asks if their bard can try to cook more delicious meals to prepare for a meeting, and the DM says, "There's nothing about cooking in your backstory. Roll a high check with a disadvantage." Rushing the game. I absolutely hate when a DM is impatient for one reason or another and just rushes players to move along the plot. Now, of course, it might be needed to hurry them a bit when they spend 3 hours choosing one weapon in a store, but rushing the story so much that the players have to skip roleplay moments and possibly important conversations with NPCs, or rushing the entire campaign so that even battles sometimes suddenly end on an anticlimactic note because the enemies ran away. That's an instant red flag. Completely banning or declining players' creative ideas. I just can't stand it when DMs completely refuse to even try unusual ideas that a player suggests. Even when it's something crazy and unlikely to happen, just let them try at least. I'm still salty that my first DM didn't let me create a trap for a powerful but not a very smart beast by creating a system of illusions and trigger-based sound messages, even though it was the main focus of my wizard's build. Nerfing features that are given as part of a race or class from official Wizards of the Coast books and not giving a clear explanation why. Long lists, or almost not having a list at all, of what playstyle is acceptable for players. I'm not talking a general note on thematic tone, the campaign will be serious or lighthearted. Or the quality of life of expectations, no main characters, no party betrayers or killers, or even content age warnings. But things that are more like this. In session, you will only and always speak in first person as your character. Or, you will only use character names and speak only to characters, not players. Or, of course, anything said at the table is horrible in-game. Ooh, I hate that one. Or other indications that DMs are way too self-serious or see players as a captive audience or their pawns in the telling of their amazing stories. This is a written-in commentary by our scriptwriter. The scriptwriter gets where this person is coming from, but what they're describing is not necessarily a bad thing to them. Some DMs prefer to have a certain format for their games. If that doesn't work for you, then it's not a game you should join. Some DMs and even some players prefer a much more structured roleplay experience to keep things consistent and focused. While it's not for everyone, there are plenty of groups like that, not just in the TTRPG scene, but in LARP and other role-playing scenes as well. What becomes toxic is when those rules are enforced on people after the game has already started and people didn't get to agree to it beforehand, which, hey, even this narrator agrees on. The uncalled for flirting DM. I just had a bad taste in my mouth from that one. Bad-mouthing other players behind their backs without actually addressing the problem. Again, I've got bad taste for that one. When a GM has your character perform an action or states what your character does as the result of the role. I always remember 2 interactions with 2 different GMs, the first to myself and the second to another player. I was waiting for the party to burst out of a door, but didn't know if the party or the enemies would come through first. As soon as the door opened, I said I'd wait a moment to see who it was because I was a safe distance away. I was told to make a ballistic skill check, which I just failed, and was informed I fired off a burst with a girly squeal that nearly hit my teammates. When I objected, I was told it happened because my character was a little bitch. I was inexperienced back then and just wore it, assuming that's how everyone saw my character. That's pretty gross. I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. The second was much more recent, and I nearly left the game. And it didn't even happen to me. The GM stated that due to an attractive NPC bending over a desk, it caused a PC who was a very messed up Vesk, which is basically a space lizardman, to, fly the red rocket. Oh, but it didn't stop there, of course. Said unwanted effect literally knocked things off the desk. I lost my temper at that. Why would a Vesk have that reaction to a mammalian humanoid? Why would the GM enforce that reaction on a PC? The response? Well, because it was all a bit of fun to them. I will say without a shadow of a doubt that that player was too polite to say anything if they felt upset. I myself only stayed because they appeared to still legitimately have fun, but my investment in the game was gone at that point. Ready for another dose of commentary by our scriptwriter? First off, Starfinder. Woohoo! Hey, I agree. Second off, that was a dick move by the first DM. Sometimes as a DM, a player's explanation of their character's actions should hold more weight than a die roll, which I agree with too. And finally, this is coming from the scriptwriter, not from me. I have a legitimate question for the OP here. If a female Commander Shepard can bang Garrus, why can't a Vesk be attracted to a human? Honestly, it sounds like it was just a joke, but I'm kind of torn on here. On one hand, it's a little over the line, sure, but on the other, if no one else objected, maybe you don't really have the right to be offended on their behalf. Again, not my opinion. As a DM and a player, I've seen my fair share. One example of a red flag I've seen is when a DM immediately retcons what the enemies did in response to the players. For example, when a DM ends a turn in melee with a player, and as the player starts to take their action, they choose to change their mind, not end the enemy's turn and change what they do. An example of this in action actually happened in Critical Role Campaign 2, when the party was fighting the Gorgon that petrified Cadeus's family. It was either Not or Yasha up, and Matt decided that he would take back the action in the middle of a turn that wasn't his, and intentionally moved away from melee with the character with a legendary action. Keep in mind, this wasn't at the end of a turn, it was in the middle of a player's turn who was in the middle of prepping an attack. Script guy here again, just leaving some more commentary. I kept this one in because the overall point is true, but he wanted to point out that this poster clearly does not understand the rules regarding legendary actions. It's not trying to defend Matt here, of course, but you can't call out Matt for undoing what an enemy did, when the enemy used a legendary action to do so. Legendary actions are a systematic mechanic in the D&D system. They are actions that an enemy takes at the end of a player's turn, not on their own. The rules explicitly state that a creature with legendary actions cannot use those actions on their own turn. I actually went and looked at the example mentioned just to be sure about it and know, and what Matt did wasn't retconning an enemy's action. Oddly, he was doing exactly what the enemy would do in a reaction to being injured by burning a legendary action to use as defensive shift, which is a homebrew mechanic Matt added to that particular Gorgon, which Matt later in the episode explained doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. DMs that take delight in the agony of the players, not the characters, the players. Played with a DM who loved to kill characters, make all combats feel like going to war, and buffing already too strong for our level monsters with shit they don't need. A Spirit Naga with reactive at level 3 is fucking stupid. It's literally only there so the DM can jack off his murder boner. Finally, someone had the nerve to just straight up say it. Piggybacking off that same gripe, DMs who don't care if their players are having fun, don't listen to player input, and will readily admit they don't care when confronted by it. Same DM, clear favoritism, giving his romantic partner advantage for no reason other than because she asked for it, allowing her to change her action mid-turn when everyone else has to stick with what they said first. giving her information for free when everyone else has to roll a DC 18 plus history check to remember an important meeting point that we learned yesterday in character, but a month ago in real time, that no one wrote down. Still the same DM. Visceral hatred and shutting down of any between-session roleplay, particularly being vicious to one person who likes the soft RPs, chats, to talk during downtime. For a specific example, in a group where this DM was a player, my character and his brother were having a conversation, with DM approval, in the soft RP subchat in our Discord about how my brother is always showing me up, and a bit of my character's inferiority complex came out. It was a private conversation in a closed room between just the brothers, which had no bearing on the plot and hardly any character growth. Just an argument. But when he saw it, he threw such a tantrum saying that it was important and should be in-game and threatened to leave if the soft RPs weren't terminated, and deleted soft RP channels and all his games. No one we know plays with him anymore. Banning certain races they don't like. I was once in a Starfinder game, yes, where the DM was pretty cool, until he said he doesn't allow tieflings in his games. Well, I asked why, and he said that everyone plays them the same. Edgy and chaotic stupid, haha. He then ranted on about his experiences with players who played tieflings, explained how both the players and the characters they played were problematic. After that, I had explained to him that I had played 2 different tieflings in previous games, and neither one of them were edgy. He then said even so, he doesn't allow tieflings in any of his games, saying this is a woke game. Thankfully, they don't come up too often, but these DMs are the ones who enforce LGBTQ and other woke tropes within their games, and even have more requirements that the players have to be LGBTQ and whatnot. If you want to play a gay or lesbian character, that's fine. The D&D scene has always been one of the most inclusive, despite how much people disparaged D&D players for being geeks and being too nerdy in the past. But when the DM says everyone at the table has to embody some element of the woke culture or they can't play, that's a pretty big red flag for me. How bad could this be? Well, I've seen a game where the DM required wheelchair-bound player characters in a fantasy RPG set in medieval times. Are you kidding me? Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, back at it again, checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, to leave some love, and of course to subscribe, and of course to ring that bell so you can get notified when we post or go live. I also would like you to leave a comment down below, not only for the bloodthirsty algorithm vampires, but because we want to know what your red flags are. And don't hold back, we want to know. If they're offensive, they're offensive. If they're not, they're not. This is all about trying to figure out what's going on and why. That said, if you want to come say hi to me, please do so over at brianvonva.com. I have all my socials listed at the bottom. Links are in the description below. As always, I try to end things on a positive note. Let me just end things on something that, in my opinion, is kind of important for people to hear. I don't want people in the world to be judged based on what they do or don't do. One person may grow up one way, one person may grow up another. One person's work ethic may be one way, one may be another. You don't have to sit there every day and take BS from somebody because they grew up differently than you. If you get your things done, if you get things sorted, that's perfect. Do things at your pace. Don't sit there and let somebody else bully you into something that you think is better when you have something that works. If you, for example, love going to university, go to university. Don't let someone tell you that you can't. If you're going to like a beautician school, don't let somebody say you should just be working instead of going there or whatever. Take things as you do them. I want all of you to feel comfortable being you. Enhance yourself, expand your horizons, but don't let other people sit there and tell you what you're doing is wrong, because how the hell do they know? They don't know you, and they don't know what works and what doesn't work for you, because they, at the end of the day, have a plan and a message in their own head, and that's never going to translate to anybody else. That's just how it is. So do your best out there, and don't let anyone bully you. Love you all. See you next time.